All right, let's talk through Chapter 5. So, reminder, in Chapter 4, we talked all about the demand and the demand curve and how demand is affected. Today, we're going to start through the chapter on supply. So, a little background. Just as consumer behavior shapes the demand curve, producer behavior shapes the supply curve. When studying demand, you should think like a consumer or a demander. When studying supply, you must think like a producer or a supplier. You may feel more natural as a consumer. After all, you are one. We all are. But you know more about producers than you may realize. Either online or in person, you have been around them all your life. Walmart, Subway, Best Buy, Exxon, McDonald's, Microsoft, Apple, KFC, Pizza Hut, Ford, Home Depot, Target, Gap, Google, Facebook, any local businesses, and thousands more. You will draw on your knowledge to develop an understanding of supply and the supply curve. So, supply curve. 2 learning objectives for the first part. Explain the law of supply, and then describe the elasticity of supply and explain how it is measured. So consumer behavior shapes the demand curve. Producer behavior shapes the supply curve. Start thinking like a producer or a supplier. This lesson investigates the relationship between prices and the quantity of goods or services businesses are willing to offer for sale. One of the relationships considered is how businesses react to changes in the price they are able to charge. Candy bars, okay? I know it's hard to imagine when we're doing a video and we can't really discuss, but just in your mind, imagine you're earning money for a class trip by selling candy bars at football games. We could actually say baseball games now. How would you react if you discovered that you could sell your candy for $1.50 a bar instead of the dollar price you had been charging? Would you work to sell even more candy than you had in the past? How would you decide how much candy to offer for sale? Well, if we're going to make 50 cents more, excuse the cough, please. If we could make 50 cents more per candy bar, wouldn't we work harder and harder and harder to sell it? We're making more money, so we're probably going to try to sell more and work harder to do it. We may put some posters up. We may send some people out into the stand with candy bars to sell. We're going to try as hard as we can to sell because we're getting more profit at more price. So first of all, the law of supply. With demand, the assumption is that consumers try to maximize utility, which is happiness, remember? The incentive that motivates their behavior. So with supply, the assumption is that producers try to maximize profit. Profit is incentive that motivates the behavior of suppliers. So the role of profit. A firm tries to earn profit by transforming resources into products. Profit equals total revenue minus total cost. Total revenue is the total money received from consumers for a certain period of time. It's what a company makes. Total cost includes the cost of all resources used by a firm to produce goods or services. So they sell their product for so much money, they subtract out how much it costs to make the product, and this equals their profit. It's important to know that when total revenue just covers total cost, a firm breaks even. If total revenue falls short of total cost year after year, the firm will fail. Hold on a second. There was something else I wanted to point out here. It's interesting to note that, like in the U.S., each year, there are millions of new firms that enter the U.S. marketplace, and nearly as many leave. Most of the more than 30 million profit-seeking firms in the United States consist of just an owner-operator, like a plumber or an accountant with no hired employees. So it's neat to think that there are so many entrepreneurs that just starting their own business and trying to make it work. But then the next year, just as many leave and just as many more start up. So more firms may close their doors and enter a market in a given year. But firms, they do their best to to make profit, to make their total revenue minus their total costs be profitable, because then they can stay in business. It's just neat to be an entrepreneur in the U.S. market. All right, supply. So supply is the relation between price and quantity demanded. Just like demand is the relation between price and quantity demanded, supply is the relation between price and quantity supplied. Supply indicates how much of a good producers are willing and able to offer for sale per period at each price, other things constant. And the law of supply says that the quantity supplied is usually directly or positively related to its price, other things constant. Thus, the lower price, the smaller the quantity supplied. The higher price, the greater quantity supplied. If we threw up a really quick curve, with price on one side and quantity on the other axis, our supply curve looks like this. So as price goes up, awesome arrow, quantity is also going to go up. And that is the law of supply. The assumption is producers are trying to maximize profit, and profit is the goal that motivates the behavior of suppliers. If they're not going to make profit, they're not going to have any motivation to do what they're doing. And the law of supply says that quantity supplied is directly or positively. I'm going to point that out again. So we have our curve. Okay, this is a direct or positive relation. So when price goes up, quantity also goes up. That's what we mean by direct or positive. And the supply curve. The supply curve is a curve or a line showing the quantities of a particular good supplied at various prices during a given period of time, other things constant. If you look closer, we have the schedule, which is a table, and the curve, which is the graph. And if you look at the graph, it's easy to show this positive relationship. So at $3, a supplier is going to supply 12 million pizzas. At $15, the supplier will supply 28 million pizzas. So as price increases, the supplier is going to want to supply more pizzas. Okay, more willing to supply. Producers offer more for sale when the price rises for two reasons. First, as the price rises, other things constant, a producer becomes more willing to supply the good. Prices act as signals to existing and potential suppliers about the rewards for producing various goods. As an increase in the price of pizza, with other things remaining constant, creates a profit incentive to shift some resources out of producing other goods, whose prices are now relatively lower, and into pizza, whose price is now relatively higher. A higher pizza price makes supplying pizza more profitable and attracts resources from lower valued users. Okay, more able to supply. Higher prices increase the producer's ability to supply the good. The cost of producing an additional unit of good usually rises as output increases. So that means that the marginal cost of production increases as output increases. Okay, we're going to learn more about marginal cost in 5.3. Because suppliers face a higher marginal cost of producing the good, they need to get a higher price to be able to increase the quantity supplied. So a higher price makes producers more able to increase quantity supplied. I mean, let's just review that a little bit. So in short, a higher price makes producers more willing and able to increase quantity supplied. Suppliers are more willing because production of the higher priced good is now more profitable than the other uses of the resources. And remember, we're all about the profit. We're suppliers. We're trying to make money. We're trying to make a living. We're trying to get rich, right? Suppliers are more able because the higher price allows them to cover the higher marginal cost that typically results from increasing production. And we'll get into that in 5.3 also. A silly example, a good example, a higher price for gasoline in recent decades, okay, not recently like now, but in recent decades, prices skyrocketed for a while until they have recently fallen. So higher price for gasoline in recent decades has increased producers' ability to search for oil in less accessible areas, such as the remote jungles of the Amazon and the oil sands of the Canadian West, the stormy waters of the North Sea, and the frozen tundra above the Arctic Circle. Thus, the quantity of oil supplied increased as the price decreased. Now, recently, the price for gasoline has fallen. That means that producers are investing in their product less. They're not searching for more product. They're not searching in hard-to-find areas. They're actually pulling back on their production because price is falling and they're not making as much money. Another example, gold prices fell by more than half between 1980 and 2000. Therefore, producers were no longer able to mine for gold in less accessible regions or where the ore contained less gold. As the price declined, the quantity supplied also declined. Supply versus quantity supplied. Okay, supply is the entire relation between price and quantity supplied, and supply is shown by a schedule or a curve. Quantity supplied refers to the amount offered for sale at a specific price, as shown by a point on the supply curve. So here we have an awesome supply curve. Okay, money over here, quantity down here. Okay, I just showed you supply. Okay, this very archaic graph is supply. It's the entire relation between price and quantity supplied. Okay, quantity supplied is a point. Okay, it's just a point. It refers to the amount offered for sale at a particular price. Okay, so quantity supplied is just a point, and supply is the entire relationship. Individual supply and market supply. Okay, this is very similar to individual demand and market demand. Individual supply is the supply from an individual producer, and market supply is the supply from all producers in the market for that good. The market supply curve shows the total quantity supplied by all producers at various prices. Okay, in most markets, there are lots and lots of suppliers. Sometimes there could be thousands of suppliers, but let's just assume, for simplicity reasons, that there are just two suppliers in the market for pizza. Okay, Pizza Palace and Pizza Castle. We have here Pizza Palace at $12, they supply 500 pizzas per week. Pizza Castle at $12, they supply 400 pizzas per week. Well, the market supply for $12 would be 500 plus 400, or 900 pizzas per week. So the market supply curve is simply the horizontal sum of the individual supply curves for all producers in the market. Unless otherwise noted, when we talk about supply, we talk about market supply. Okay. This is an example that is sort of hard to talk about in a video, but I'll just sort of talk through it a little bit. Imagine that there's a 5-cent deposit on empty soft drink cans And we're going to try to earn money by collecting them and returning them to a grocery store. Now let's pause for a second. In the United States, there are certain areas of the country that charge you more to purchase soft drinks or anything in a can or a bottle. And they charge you more to purchase them, but when you are finished drinking them, you take them back to a recycling place, sometimes a grocery store, and get your deposit back. Massachusetts is one of these places. When I lived in Boston, we would collect all of our cans and return them back to the grocery store to get our money back. So, how many soft drink cans would you work to collect? You're trying to save up for a trip. How many cans do you think you could collect? So if the deposit was 10 cents a can, how hard would you work? You know, you think about a 12-pack of soda. That would be, what, $1.20? Not very much money and a lot of work. You know, if it was 25 cents, you may work a little bit harder. You know, if it's 50 cents, you're going to work even harder. So, as the deposit value increases, you've got money here, quantity there. You know, as at 50 cents, you're probably going to collect more quantity cans. At 25 cents, there's 25 cents, you're not going to collect as many because you're not making as much. You know, at 10 cents, you may not collect any at all. Okay, so as the deposit value increases, the number of students who choose to participate in the quantity with 2 T's, and I can't see the rest of it, of containers collected also grows. Candy bar revisited. While you were able to increase the price of the candy you sold to $1.50, you had to pay for the bars. The amount you had to pay for the bars also increased from 75 cents to $1.25. So now you're selling them for $1.50, but you're buying them for $1.25. You're only making a quarter a piece. At the same time, you could have sold slices of pizza for $1 that cost you 50 cents. So your profit here is 50 cents. Your profit there is 25 cents. How do these facts alter the number of candy bars you supply? You may not work as hard for the candy bars because you're not making as much of a profit. On the flip side, you may offer more pizza for sale and try to really market that pizza. You know, walk around with pizza in the stands trying to sell it faster for people because you're making more money on it. And then candy bar revisited again. You couldn't sell even more pizza because you rented a small booth for $50 a game. You don't have as much space. In this limited space, there wasn't enough room to serve more than 2 customers at a time, so there was a really long line. What would you do if a larger booth became available at twice the cost, but would allow you to serve 4 customers at a time? Would you pay for this higher cost? If you did rent the booth, what would happen to our ability to supply pizza? Well, we'd be able to supply more pizza if we rented the larger booth. What other steps would you need to take to increase the quantity of pizza you supplied? You may put an oven in your larger booth so you could bake more pizzas faster, or maybe 2 ovens. You're going to work harder to supply more pizza because you're making more profit on it. And if you rented another booth or a larger booth, then you could serve more people pizza. And there's your video. It'll be in the playlist. All right, learning objective 1, law of supply, check.